to smart grid. I will discuss about the role of data analytics in smart grid because blockchain is a kind of data management database technique, how to store and manage data. But ultimately, it is the data analytics that helps us that is the practical application of data in the smart grid. So how it is useful, we'll discuss some of the applications using PMU and smart meter data in smart grid. But before that, we'll discuss some of the basic introduction about briefly what is smart grid, what is data analytics, and how it is useful in today's scenario. The objectives with which this presentation is prepared and delivered today is to provide you all the basic overview of the data analytics in relevance to the smart grid, and to the researchers, faculties, and other scholars to ignite the eagerness and enthusiasm about this topic, because it is the future which has a lot of scope, which has a lot of potential, not only for research, but practical applications and improving the quality and efficiency of the entire smart grid and power system. So with these objectives, I have summarized, I have tried to include following contents in my presentation: brief overview of the data analytics after a brief introduction, smart grid infrastructure for data analytics, what is the infrastructure that is available for data analytics in today's smart grid. We'll discuss some of the applications of data analytics in smart grid in terms of for inertia estimation, for non-intrusive load monitoring, and for load forecasting. And then finally, we'll conclude this talk. So we know what smart grid is. It is a network, electricity network, but it used to be earlier also. It used to be a purely transmission network earlier, interconnection of transmission bus bars through transmission lines, and connecting all the customers through distribution system, which is a very highly complex and meshed system. But what is difference between the power system and smart grid? Now it has two-way communication. It has two-way flow of data, where even consumer can produce electricity and they can provide, they can feed it to the grid. They can communicate their applications, their role. Utility can inform to the consumer what will be the varying prices, what will be the frequency, what will be the typical load, or is there any shutdown in a practical smart grid. It might not have been completely implemented in India or MP, but this is what we see in a smart grid. So it is a traditional grid added with a network of computers, systems to collect, transmit, and store data, and to manage supply and demand. The key features of the smart grid includes the two-way communication, demand response, electricity trading, distributed energy resources in the form of renewable energy sources, in the form of other kind of localized, for example, electric vehicles, and intelligent automation. How we are handling the requirements of the smart grid in terms of the stability, in terms of the security of the power system, how power system can respond automatically, that is being incorporated in the smart grid now. So what we are trying for in a smart grid? We are trying for delivery optimization using the improved efficiency and reliability of the delivery system. We are trying to improve the demand optimization so that we can not only enhance the saving of electricity and all kind of energy resources, but also we can have demand management, supply management, so that the peak demand can be reduced. And then best and maximum utilization of the assets that we have with maximum efficiency, with reduced risk of any catastrophic failure, cascaded tripping, and related losses to the industry, consumers, and poor life quality. That's what is the objective with the smart grid that we have for tomorrow. This is the conceptual model. We all know about it, that how it is proposed. Why I am discussing about all these things is because this will give us idea about how data comes into the picture in a smart grid. Traditionally, this used to be the power system. We have a bulk generation, we have a transmission system, we have distribution system, and we have consumer. So this yellow dotted line and these four blocks, this was the traditional power system. Now, what we have now, we have electricity markets now, in just like the National Stock Exchange and Commodity Exchange. We have power exchange also. Two power exchanges are operational in India, where we can trade electricity in real time, maybe in day ahead or hour ahead market. There is a just like variations in share market prices. There is a fluctuation in these prices also, and you can earn a lot of money if you know, if you can truly handle the data information that is available in this entire system. Then we have operations engaged here. We have service providers in the form of retailers, in the form of aggregators. So there are so many kind of service providers available. For just like in telecommunication, we have different service providers like Jio, BSNL, Airtel. We have different kind of service providers. They are at different levels. So they not only interact or provide electricity to the consumer, they also manage how it is being provided with best quality, how it is provided at the better cost. Okay, so you see, this remains as it is, traditional. This is the additional thing that has been incorporated. And these blue lines, they are basically communication of data information from one point to another. The market need to know how much generation will be available. The market also needs to know what is the requirement of the customer. Accordingly, the market clearing price is decided, different depending upon the model that is being incorporated. But information is very crucial. Now, how we get this information? This is the detailed model just to see how information flows. We have retailer, wholesaler, aggregator. They all get internet e-business opportunities, so they get information about the market. What is the scenario? Whether rain will be there tomorrow or not, whether temperature will be high or low. If rain will be there, then your electricity demand will reduce or it will increase. Based on all these data, information, I decide my strategy whether I have to buy electricity or I have to sell electricity for tomorrow. So in electricity market, I can go. Similarly, in operations, whether my transmission line will be fully engaged, it will have some capacity balance for allowing some transmission of additional flow or not. So all these kind of decisions, they require some information. Okay. So similarly for service providers, similarly at the consumer, traditionally we used to have one energy meter, which used to record the consumption of energy. But now what smart grid offers is there will be two-way flow of energy. So I can sell energy to the electricity grid. So I need information whether at what time I have sold it. So even for metering, even for these billing applications, we need it. The next thing that we need is what time of use. Suppose in the peak time, I have very heavy load. So to minimize the peak, I increase the prices during the evening and morning time. So as a consumer, when utility have varying time during the day of operation, I will try to shift my load which are not urgent, which are not crucial, to some off-peak hours to minimize our bill, monthly energy consumption bill. So for that, I need information at what time, what are the prices. These prices could be based on time, or they could be dependent upon frequency, or they could be dependent upon some other parameters, how much balance or imbalance in the demand and supply is there. I can gain by participating in the demand response program of the smart grid. In demand response, basically, I agree as a consumer, I agree to the utility that in case of peak load, you can cut down my load to manage the demand supply balance. There are many different approaches. So in all these things, we need some kind of information, some kind of data. Okay. Now, how data is generated? We have smart meters, we have phasor measurement unit, we have a SCADA system. So many sensors and things are employed at different levels. So a large amount of data is generated in the power system. You see, earlier we used to have typically few RTUs, remote terminal units, and IEDs, in intelligent electronic devices. But right now, there is a plethora of data sources which are available in this, and they generate a very large and bulk amount of data. And what does that mean? Data without meaning is of no use. It is just a data, and you cannot use it. Rather, it has negative impact that if you cannot manage your data properly, then it will be like an ocean. You find yourself nowhere, and you will be lost. Your key information, your key decision-making ability will be lost in that bulk amount of data. So we need to properly analyze, store, and handle and manage the data. And that's what is the role of blockchain management is. Okay. So blockchain management is a concept that is a specific type of database. Database means how you are gathering the information so that it is available timely, it is available readily for other applications in minimum time. There are other concepts which are available like data mining and other things, but we'll discuss briefly about what is difference. So blockchain technology stores data in blocks which are chained together. Okay. For example, I have some information already available with me and some new information comes in. Then there will be some earlier blocks, and when fresh information, fresh data comes, they will be chained together with some information. Okay. In chronological order so that it can be retracked as and when we need, we can retrieve it in the earlier, easiest and time efficient manner. So if we define blockchain from some of the references, it is a shared immutable ledger that facilitates the process of recording transactions and tracking assets in a business network. Now, if you refer to the smart grid, it is also a kind of network, okay, electrical and communication network, and it also has transactions. It also has transactions. In what kind of transactions? For example, transaction in the form of amount of energy, that is a block of energy that is being sold, that is being consumed. Okay, tracking assets. Which transmission lines, which generator, which distribution system, which transformer have been used for facilitating this process. So all these things, when they are stored in that manner properly, so it means blockchain could be very useful technology for smart grid data because it is bulk, because it is continuous, it is coming continuously, and it involves transactions and sources of information in the network form, right? So this is about technology. So you might be going through the basic concepts of blockchain technology. So I'm not going into the detail of this. But the question comes, okay, I have stored the data in the blockchain technology, in this particular specific technology. But if I'm not going to use it, what is its value? Its value is determined by its application, right? So we will discuss about the data analytics, which gives us basically the value to the data by transforming data into the information and then applying meaning to it to translate it into the knowledge, which with some application into it, we apply some experience into it, that becomes wisdom, and that wisdom we apply for some decision makings for real life applications. So that is basically a data analytics, application of data for real life decisions and meaning. So what we do in data analytics, we have some pre-processing and analysis that transforms data into information. Then we have some inference engine and rule basis for translating that information into decision. So that this is all is basically a data analytics that we are going to discuss today. Briefly, we will discuss about some facts about the data analytics. As I told you earlier also, a couple of minutes ago, that unlike data mining, there is no assumption involves. Data mining involves certain kind of assumptions while handling the data. It assumes something. Mining means from a bulk amount of data. It might not be very relevant when we use blockchain technology. But if we are talking in general about data analytics, and we are using a kind of database which just stores in a traditional way, then data mining could be useful for retrieving the data rapidly for applications. Data analytics include data cleaning, data transformation, and documentation also. Data from different data sources are analyzed and converted into information, after which all information from different sources are clubbed together in a single data sources and presented to the user in a useful fashion. What I'm saying is, I have a smart meter here, I have a PMU here, I have some relay or some SCADA system here. Now there are three pieces of information. This data or information, when it is clubbed together, then it can result into a decision making that what was the cause of this fault. So that is the real application of data analytics for any purpose. Converting information, clubbing that information and transforming it into a single useful manner, that is basically the real application of data analytics. So ultimately, if we see the process or stages, we have big data, we have some pre-processing in the form of indexing, organizing and optimizing the data. Maybe we have some missing data, maybe we have some erroneous data, we find out the outliers, we handle them. Then we have some reporting application just for reporting. So this is the frequency which is going on like this. So this is a reporting purpose, but cannot be used in this way for automatic application. So we need some predictive analytics. For example, if this is the trend, then what will be future frequency in next 1 hour? Or if this is the frequency, what are the possible fault or the scenario or the security threats to the power system? So that how can we take automatic decision or prescription for taking the corrective action? Okay, what could be the set of potential future scenarios by predicting the future based on this? So that is basically is the analytics that is involved in the data analysis part, right? This is the pre-processing stage, we know it, and this is about the classification, how we classify the data analytics depending upon the complexity that is involved and data complexity and the algorithm objective. So the least one is just reporting purpose for the dashboard that I told you. And the most is real-time integrated decision making. Okay, this is the biggest it requires high data complexity and requires high amount of algorithm objectives. But otherwise, it could be real-time comprehensive data exploration or basic data-driven decision making. But in real time and data-driven decision making and real-time decision making is different. Data-driven decision making means I am having some forecasted value based on some historical data information, and now I am planning that how much will be flow tomorrow, power flow, how much will be power demand. Accordingly, I am bidding in that way. And real-time integrated decision making means I am operating my generator control, my load flow in such a way what will be my dispatch schedule according to the data analytics in real time. That is basically we require state-of-the-art analysis technique in these applications, right? So this is the broad classification of data analytics that we have, and this is the some of the concepts that we usually apply in data analytics. So I'm giving you just overview of the concepts that we apply in data analytics. We use statistics for study of data for their collection, analysis, and interpretation purpose. For better representation of the data, we use statistics. For example, if I have thousands days of hourly data, it could be meaningless. But if I arrange them in Gaussian distribution form, if I arrange them there, if I take their mean value, their standard deviation, so I have just two values, mean value and standard deviation, and gives us clear picture about the data, that what this millions of data mean to me. So this is how the statistics is useful in that. Then we use machine learning. This is also a technique, we all are familiar with this, and how it use the information embodied in the data for training of the model automatically in an artificially intelligence manner. That is basically a machine learning process. And the modern fast computers with high computing facility, they helps us in extracting that useful information. We used to do it earlier also, but we do it in artificial manner today using the computational facilities that we have. Then sometimes we use data mining, as I already told you. We use pattern recognition also. For example, in statistics, I am having some plot of data. For example, this is my load flow, it is going like this, and this is my pattern going like this for load. So my load is peaking here and there is a valley here. Okay, so this is my peak demand, this is my minimum demand or base demand. So accordingly, using pattern recognition, I can use the technique of pattern recognition, how this information or how I can balance this load, how I can reduce this peak, how I can fill this valley by shifting my load here. I can take decisions about what will be my tomorrow's demand at this point of time. If I have to plan some maintenance, some regular scheduled maintenance, so I can schedule it. It is better to schedule some generator during this period because my load is low. It is better to schedule some load or a distribution system during this period because my peak will be reduced. So this is how I can use pattern recognition for automatic decision making using the machine learning techniques for any useful information. We use deep learning in the form of, for example, recurrent neural network or LSTMs, and other techniques also are used for information which is embedded in the data. For example, the long patterns of seasonal variations in the load demand, any seasonal variations. So we need the seasonal variations, means before 3 months in rainy season, what were the pattern. So it will be that information needs to be extracted. So we need deep learning and artificial intelligence. These are some of the concepts or techniques, recent modern tools that we use in the data analysis applications. So here what I have tried to show you, what is the amount of data that we have in a smart grid. You just refer this table, okay? For example, the number of records from a smart meter in a year under various collection frequency with the assumption of 1 million devices. You know, in MP, if we talk about only industrial customer, and we have then residential or commercial customers, they can be divided into two categories. Industrial means those who are at 3.3 kV or higher voltage rating, those who have taken connections at that voltage level. And suppose three-phase or single-phase supply that we usually use in our houses, that is residential. So even in MP, the number of smart meters, they are in millions, okay? And they generate data every block of 15 minutes or every block of 1 hour. Suppose I am collecting information only once in a day. Even then, your records will be, number of records will be 365 million. And if we consider that one record is of 5 KB size, then its size will be 1.82 TB. I am talking about very small figure of 1 million devices. This is very small figure. And I am talking about only once per day. Usually, right now, what PMUs we have, they provide us 60 or 50 records every second. Can you imagine? $60 records or 50 records in our Indian system every second. So what will be the volume of data that we have? Okay. So we need to handle these data very carefully. So this is the kind of sources that I have tried to. So what are the characteristics of the data that we have? It is about their volume. What large amount of data we have? Velocity means the data keeps on coming regularly. If it is static data of 2 TB, 100 TB, still it is easy to handle it. But the new data keeps coming every minute or every day or every hour. So that velocity also is very crucial for our system, smart grid. The variety of data that we have data from smart meter, we have data from PMUs, we have data from users, maybe some social media. Then we have value of the data, means some data will be very useful. For example, a reading from a PMU. Some data may not be that much crucial for power system or a smart grid or distribution system operation. So that ability to extract value in information refers to its value. Okay? So let's come to the typical procedure of data analytics in a smart grid. We have some data acquisition system, maybe in the form of what is the condition of equipment and their operational status, whether their circuit breaker is on or off. Then some meteorological information, what about temperature, about the raining, about snowfall in the northern states. Then maybe from AMI, automatic metering infrastructure, or maybe from PMUs. So they all are the sources and data is acquired from this. Then we have some data management and data storage techniques. It is maybe in the form of blockchain or any other traditional form. We prepare that data for our application. Then we use some big data analysis technique. And then we prepare a model by incorporating the intelligence hidden in that data, information hidden in that data. Once that model is trained, that model is ready for decision making using the real-time data. So we may send it for storage here, but at the same time, we use this data in real time for real-time decision making, and we apply it for practical actions and practical applications. So this is the broad overview that we have. So before we discuss the real life applications, so you keep this in mind. With slight variations, this will remain valid for the applications that we will be discussing. Okay, these are different algorithms that we have so that you can refer. Now, after going through the data analytics technique, let us come to the smart grid infrastructure what we have today. Whether we are really ready for the data analytics in a smart grid or not. So what kind of data sources we have? We have smart meters. We have some regional economy related information. We have meteorological information, some customer service related information. All these information, some load control related information, some equipment parameters, load monitoring, power quality, wave service database, Some of these are unstructured data. For example, some message, text message or Facebook message coming from some customer. So these are unstructured. There will be some structured data. Structured means you have predefined structure that it will be of 128-bit size, and first 3 bits designate its device ID. The next designate its power, next designate its voltage. So this is highly structured data. Now, next block is semi-structured. I am getting some message. Am I audible? Are you getting my voice clearly?
Yes, sir, it is very clear. We are getting it, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So I got some text messages that the voice is not clear. So maybe the issue at the other end. So
Yes,
please
but
check your.
it is very clear to us. Maybe some participants are facing, but it is very clear.
So this is the infrastructure that we have today. We have PMUs available with us. Okay, we have different video capturing techniques available with us for surveillance of the transmission lines, for surveillance of the substations that we have. We have different meteorological applications from IMD and different sources that we have, AMI metering data. So all this kind of sources are available with us. So this is what I have mentioned here. Similarly, before we discuss about technology enablers, let us have a brief recap of what we have discussed today so far. So that if you have any questions so far, any of the audience side, then we can take it up right now, because in this continuous way, it will not be one way, it will not be good. So you can unmute yourself and ask any questions if you have so far. We will have question answer session at the end also, but sometimes it becomes easy to have clearing the doubts immediately so that the remaining talk will become enjoying. So do you have any questions or doubts so far we have discussed? Yes?
Participants, we
Yes, sir.
can ask your questions.
I'm not getting your voice. If you have any question, please repeat it clearly.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Sir, I'm Kirti Gupta from Mumbai, Vidyalankar College. I would like to ask, sir, this much of data will be stored in blockchain technology. So if I want to erase some data after some period of time, when I don't require the data, is it possible that I can delete it because it is immutable as I understand? So can I delete it in future according to my requirement?
Very good question. Actually, immutable is a feature that is there. If we want, we can make it immutable, but if we need, as I told you, it is stored in the form of blocks in chronological order. So for example, if I say that 1 year data is crucial for us, so as the new blocks keep on adding, I can keep on deleting entire blocks in that way. So there is a possibility of that. It needs to be designed, or it needs to be configured in that way. So that is very much possible. So that is one of the features that is available in the blockchain technology, and that makes it very robust and secure in that form. Okay, especially for power system and other cyber physical systems where the cyber security and cyber attacks are very common and security is very important. So is that clear?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so what we have discussed about today is a brief introduction about the smart grid and how its smart grid today generates a lot of data, and how that data needs to be properly managed for real life application. And for that, we need a technique, and that we are discussing today is a data analytics. So we discussed about what is data analytics in very brief. just a kind of introduction I have tried to give you. Otherwise, it is a full semester course to discuss in detail about what is data analytics and their techniques. But as I told you in the beginning, just to ignite the awareness and enthusiasm, I am trying to give you some information, techniques and technologies which are available today, just to open you the new ways for research, to give you new directions. I am just touching up different technologies and techniques, how they can be applied for real life applications. Okay. Okay, so moving ahead. Now, in the smart grid infrastructure, apart from the sources of data, we have many technology enablers which enables us to go for this data analytics and application and automation and all these things. For example, we have cyber physical systems. We have, for example, vehicle to grid and grid to vehicle technology, which is coming up for integration of electric vehicles. We have Internet of Things, which helps us in distributed energy resources and microgrid concept, applying the microgrid concept there for better utilization of the renewable energy sources and small size generators, energy generators in our households. For example, very micro wind plant or photovoltaics, rooftop photovoltaics, just the electric vehicles. They can be used as electricity storage and generators in our household. So they can be interconnected together using IoT and other techniques. We have a smart metering infrastructure. We have artificial intelligence and machine learning concept. We have ICT, information and communication technology and data processing. We are progressing from 2G, 3G, 4G, and now talking about 5G. So all these technology, they are helping us, they are enabling us to go for, yes, you can do it, just go ahead. We could not have thought about the smart grid concept earlier without this ICT, without IoT and this cyber security and cyber physical systems, but it is possible today. So what all these technologies are, a brief overview. I think you can refer it from the textbook because it is very difficult for me to cover each and everything here about these techniques. So it is the brief introduction. You can later on go through the PPT. I can provide you, or you can read it from different. I'm sure that in the entire course, you might have been told about what is Internet of Things and ICT, because all these things are related to blockchain technology and the data processing and data handling systems. Because when it comes to cyber physical systems, so our power system, smart grid, is an excellent example of cyber physical system, which involves interdisciplinary approach, because this is a traditional physical system that we used to have earlier also. What we now have is a cyber system, which is basically integration and interconnection of different computing facilities. So that becomes a cyber world, and then we have a real world, and their interconnection together for coordination and management of each other. That is basically a cyber physical system that we have today. Okay? So there is a new concept that is coming in, that is a twins. Okay, so just like cyber twins, traditionally what we used to do is, for example, in power system, if I have this transformer for providing auxiliary power supply to my some pumps or something in my power system, I need some auxiliary supply here. I used to have some backup system here, and it used to provide the grid in synchronization with here like this. Similarly, the concept of cyber twins is being applied into the cyber physical system. So it provides a backup in case of some problem in your real life system. So similarly, we can have cyber twins of our physical system. Our physical system, that is new concept that you can apply. For example, you have power system, or you have electric vehicle, or you have some electric motor or electric appliance at your home. So that is your physical system, right? Okay. Now suppose this communication channel fails. This communication channel fails. You are not getting information about whether my device is actually running or not. Physical device, maybe microgrid, maybe my rooftop photovoltaic or anything. So, depending upon some other information received from other channels, we can simulate it by creating a cyber twin, computational twin of that technology. So we use it, we call it simulation or mathematical modeling of it. But twin means it will replicate that in the form of computational technology. It is used in different way, but this is the concept that we can apply as a cyber twin of physical system. So that also you can go through it. Artificial intelligence and machine learning, we all are very much familiar with this technology, so I will not go into detail of this. These are some of the applications I have mentioned. So, okay, let us focus now on what are the applications of data analytics in smart grid. We can have it for automation. We'll see it, how it will be used for automation, for some non-intrusive load disaggregation, for transient stability analysis. You can ask the question about some of these, how we can apply it for transient stability analysis, how we can apply data analytics in power quality assessment, how we can apply data analytics in load forecasting, how we can apply it for electric vehicle charging pattern, or maybe fault detection, or maybe for this. So everywhere we can apply the data analytics. We'll take up some of the applications. One, non-intrusive load monitoring. We'll take up one application about inertia estimation, and another application will take up today about load forecasting. How we can apply data analytics for these applications that we will discuss, but this is not all. And because of time limitation, I am discussing only 3 of them, but we can apply it for condition monitoring of transformer, condition monitoring of my electric vehicle, condition monitoring of my rooftop solar panel. So this data analytics based on historical data, based using some artificial intelligence or machine learning technique, it can be used for any of these applications. I have listed some of these. There are many other applications which you can find out and you can add in these applications, right? So how it is possible? Because distribution system needs this separately. Why? Can you imagine you have thousands and millions of residential generators, okay? Everybody has, suppose, rooftops in their home. They have electric vehicles and they are connected to the grid for charging and discharging applications. So how will you manage your demand and supply? How will you manage, coordinate and control them? So manually it is not possible. If it is a single one, it is dozens of things, it is hundreds of things, maybe you can manage it. But when it comes to millions of things connected together, then without automation, without some artificial intelligence, without use of technology, it is not possible to manage them in an efficient and proper way. So, especially in distribution system, we desperately needs it. This is the data of distributed energy resources, which is derived for United States, and this is the projected also. In 2015, you see it is around distributed generation is around, you see here around 20,000 megawatt. Because आप लोगों ने एक कहावत सुनी होगी बचपन में, बूंद बूंद से घड़ा भरता है. Every drop, every single penny counts, and that together adds up to a bulk quantity. So even a 1 kilowatt solar panel at your rooftop, when thousands of some 1 kilowatts are added, it becomes 1 megawatt. When 100 such cities, they contribute such generation, then it really becomes hundreds and thousands of megawatt of generation from these tiny solar panels. So on a 5-year basis, distributed energy resources in US have grown almost 3 times faster than central generation, 168 gigawatt as compared to 157 gigawatt in these 5 years. So you can see the rise in distributed energy sources. And when electric vehicles will contribute as a storing and as a charging discharging capacity. This is really going to add not only complexity, not only a feature for storage, but also it is going to contribute a lot in terms of the management complexity requirement for control applications. So this is the some of the data through which I am trying to make you realize what is the importance of data analytics in a smart grid. In 2016, distributed solar PV installations alone represented 12% of new capacity addition. Can you imagine this figure? 12% only distributed. Means this data does not include any bulk solar installation of 100 megawatt or 50 megawatt that is installed by the central or state-owned utilities they are installing. This I am talking about only distributed energy resources. Okay, so this is very encouraging, and that's what motivates us to go for the automation and data analytics part. So this is about what we need for advanced modeling, monitoring, and control in distribution systems for modeling, monitoring, and control applications. Right? So distribution system needs is disparately. That is very clear to us. Okay. With availability of abundance data from the distribution system, data analytics can help significantly to us. Right. So with this motivation now, we'll go to some of the applications in distribution system. This is the what I have already told you. So we'll come directly to what I'm going to discuss today. Some application examples. One is from inertia estimation. Now, what is inertia estimation? Why do we need it? I will discuss briefly. It uses PMU data. Okay. Then next application that we will discuss today is non-intrusive load monitoring. It uses smart meter data. The next application is load forecasting, which uses SCADA and smart meter data and weather data for its application. Okay, so we'll discuss one by one some of the applications in brief. So before we discuss, any further question from your side? From the audience, any question? So far we have discussed about in very brief, we have discussed about the what is data analytics and how it is important for a smart grid for today and tomorrow for better management of the system. Any questions from your side? Am I going very fast? Or is that okay?
Okay, sir. It's okay, sir.
That is all good.
Okay. Things should be clear to you. That's what is the ultimate objective of these targets. So if I'm going fast, just to cover up the things, but it is nothing like a syllabus that I have to complete. Whatever small things we learn, if we get it proper way, that will be good for us. So, but I'm trying to cover as much as possible, but there should be learning and there should be enhancement in your learning and your knowledge. That's what is the objective. So anytime, anywhere, if you feel that something is not clear or you want to go me slow, you can interrupt me. I will try to answer your query. Okay. Okay. What we see in electricity, if we talk about in real sense, storage is not possible except some exceptions. It is not possible to store in batteries bulk amount of generation in hundreds of gigawatts or something. It is not possible to store in supercapacitors or something this bulk very large amount of energy. Okay, even the storage in the form of some pumped storage is not. There is a limited balance, and electricity that is being generated at the generators, it needs to be consumed instantaneously. Okay, there is no time difference. The electricity travels at the speed of light, so instantaneously it is generated and it is consumed. And you see, every time there is a continuous switching of appliances at our houses, and all this contributes to the unbalance in the generation and demand. How it is getting balanced? Because we need to operate our system at constant frequency of 50 hertz. Okay, at this constant frequency. What happens? Suddenly, if I put, let us say, some weight here of 10 kg, initially demand and generation, they are equal and it is balanced. If I suddenly put this, so what will happen is, it will try to unbalance in this way. Now, this is not good. This will go this way. This is not desired. So, inertia of the system helps in that way. Traditionally, we used to have synchronous machines which used to provide this inertia. As a result, maybe some megawatt, hundreds of megawatts of load or demand generation mismatch, sudden mismatch, it is not going to create a large disturbance. Frequency used to dip and very soon it will come back to its original position. But what is happening now is, with reduced number of synchronous machines and increased number of renewable energy sources which are integrated through power electronic interface, this inertia is getting vanished. We are not getting the rotating mass, a mechanical energy storage, which provides us the emergency requirement at the time of need. So that needs a large variation or fluctuations in the frequency. There is a possibility. So that's why, just to minimize the variations, with the, suppose tomorrow we are talking about 100% renewables. Okay, so when there is no synchronous machine and there is sudden change in load, how it will be managed by these renewable energy sources? That's what is the tomorrow's problem that we are facing today and that we are trying to solve today. So before solving the problem of inertia, diminishing inertia, we need to estimate it, because if we know it, we can solve. If we have some disease, what is the first thing that doctor tries? He tries to diagnose the problem. If your diagnosis is proper, then treatment is easy. But if you are not able to diagnose the problem timely and accurately, then it is not easy to treat it properly. Similarly, estimation means knowing the actual position of the power system, what is the present inertia value, accordingly what corrective actions could be taken. That's what is the basic idea. And that's what we'll try to focus in this study. I have discussed about these things. This is the normal frequency. Suppose there is sudden imbalance, so your frequency will go down and it will come back to this position. So this inertial response, it comes back in 2-3 different ways. One is known as primary response, then we have secondary response, then we have some reserve response. Suppose there is some mismatch. So initially we have some inertial response, then our governors will come into the picture, then our electric DAVRs will come into the picture, and they will try to restore the frequency back to the normal position. Okay, but if this inertia is low, this dip will be much sharper and it will be much deeper. To minimize this, we need to have better inertia. And how we will do that? Challenges in future power system network is, I have already discussed that reduction in rotational mass and decoupling effect due to power electronic converters, which resulting into highly variable and diminished inertia. Okay, so what we need is the estimation of inertia. How we can do it? We have measurements, means we have data. We can apply this data for estimation of inertia. We can communicate to the system operator and he can take either action manually, or if our training or estimation is proper and we are confident about it, we can have automatic devices or automatic decision making or actions in response to the diminishing inertia. What can be done? So, what is the purpose of inertia estimation? Better situational awareness about the power system, application of adaptive frequency control, timely, optimization of economic in terms of performance, purchase of frequency support can be planned properly if we know about the inertia properly. Okay. There are some existing methods which have been compared. I will not discuss it. One of my master's student, he has done this work. So I'm going to discuss about the method that he has discussed. I don't have time to discuss in detail about some other techniques in this. There are offline techniques also. There are online techniques also. Offline techniques means they create some perturbation into the system. That perturbation creates some disturbance. So basically, some perturbation that results in some disturbance, and that's how we use to model our system. What we do in this technique is we try to monitor some minor disturbances in the power, the natural variations and fluctuation in the power, and corresponding variations in the frequency. Okay, because they are bound to happen. When there is a frequency, do you know swing equation? I think most of you are from electrical field, so you should be knowing about what is swing equation and how it relates your power system frequency and load variations. Okay, so I'm not going into those fundamentals of the power system. Although it is there in the coming slides about that, but considering that you know, so power swing equation, it basically relates the dynamics of the power system. If there is any unbalance in the power system, mechanical and electrical load, then how it creates some deviations in the frequency. So we capture this from the PMUs, because PMUs, what information we get from the PMU? Anyone would like to answer this question? What information we get from the PMUs?
Phase and magnitude, sir.
Okay. It provides us phase and magnitude of voltage, phase and magnitude of currents. That means voltage vector and current vector for 3 phases. Apart from this, this also provides us the frequency at which it is operating, and at every reporting instant, it also provides us rate of change of frequency. And that is very crucial in modern power system. We call it smart grid. This rate of change of frequency is very crucial, because when we have the concept of microgrid and distributed energy resources, when we are operating in islanded positions, then this rate of change of frequency is very important. It is used in operation of many frequency or islanding relays. They operate on this rate of change of frequency value. Okay, so rate of change of frequency means although you may be operating at 49.5 hertz or 50 hertz. Okay, so this you are saying that your frequency is normal. Here you are seeing that your frequency is not normal. But if your rate of change of frequency is within range, then this is not a serious condition. Rather than you are having a rate of change of frequency much sharper here. For example, in this case, you see this example. You see, this is the rate of change of frequency. Okay, so actual frequency here, it is much less than your normal frequency, but rate of change of frequency is 0 here. Okay, here it is improving, rate of change of frequency is improving, but here rate of change of frequency even at this point, although frequency is in safe zone, green zone. Okay, but rate of change of frequency here, this zone, it is very serious and dangerous. So based on this rate of change of frequency information, we can take corresponding decision. So this is basically the information derived from the swing equation, that how inertia is dependent upon delta P power and delta F, rate of change of frequency, it can help us in determining the inertia of the system. So this is the proposed method. What we do is we use system identification. We have applied this on two different cases, single area case and multi-area case. Okay. I hope you understand about what is single area and multi-area. When we have tie line connections between different grids and there are tie line oscillations, so accordingly that we term them as two different area, and that power system is known as having multi-area or single area system. You may be knowing that today, as on date, our entire nation, entire control power grid, that we have a single grid, one nation, one grid. So although there are 4 different regions of operation, we operate as a single grid. Means from Jammu Kashmir to Kanyakumari, we have single frequency at which we operate. But at the time of disturbance, there may be islanded mode or multiple areas or inter-area oscillations that might happen. So that's why we have applied this concept for both single area and multi-area concept. So we take some input data and output data from the data repository for data analytics application. Based on PMU data from the database, we use system identification in real life, in real time. Okay. So what we are trying to do is basically, let us say this is our some system, some 3-bus system. Okay. This is our some 3-bus system. We have this generation, we have this load, we have this generator. So we are trying to mathematically model this system using swing equations such that we use some perturbations delta PL and their corresponding response. So we using system identification, we try to find out some models, mathematical models of maybe second order, third order, 10th order. So we use MATLAB toolbox for that application. And then we try to find out the step response of that model, and that provides us rate of change of frequency from that step response. For example, there is sudden change in frequency. So that will provide us rate of change of frequency for that, and that we use to find out the inertia of that system. The procedure is explained here. We use selection of model structure. What kind of model I need? Transfer function model or non-transfer function model is the traditional some other models. Then if it is non-transfer models, then we need to transform it into continuous domain and then test for its stability, whether the model that we have derived, whether that is stable or not. If it is not stable, then we cannot use it. Okay. Then we go for order reduction if it is applicable. And then if we have directly transfer function models, then they can be used directly. Then we apply it for single area or multi-area applications. And then after getting the transfer function, we apply as discussed in the previous slide. We have its step response. Then step response, we try to find out rate of change of frequency, and that is used using the derivation that is mentioned here. This is the extraction of inertia value from identified transfer functions. This derivation is there. This is the transfer function that has been mentioned. This is the first order governor model of the generator model. It is mentioned in that way. So this GS, basically we can model it and we can plan it. And from that we get this value delta F by delta P. And from there we try to get this value HS. तो इसका impulse response इस तरह से model किया हुआ है. इसके mathematical details for this I will mention the reference for this paper. So you can go through that paper if you want the detailed description of this method. So impulse response, I hope you know about what the impulse response is. Suppose this is my system, GS, okay? I apply some input signal and this is my response signal. So I can apply step input, I can apply impulse signal. Okay. So what is my step response or impulse step response or impulse response? That is modeled here. Okay, that is modeled here. So that is step response of GS. When I find out mathematically derived this step response, it will come out something like this. When it is solved simplified, then I get the value of H like this. So this HT at 0th instant, what is my impulse response? This will give me direct its inertia value. Okay, but what is the problem here? The problem here is H0 means at 0th instant. So there is a trick here. It is found that theoretically, immediately after the occurrence of a generation load mismatch, output of generator change in approximately inversely proportional to the reactance between generators and the point where the mismatch occurs. Which reactance connected hai? Okay. And depending upon that mismatch, the time may vary depending upon the value of that reactance. So the response at 0 instant may not give you correct values. So this was the work which was proposed earlier. It has been modified now that if I apply it after some time, then that will give us better results. But it is not possible with impulse response. So motivated from this fact, we have derived step response, which is recommended in this work. So I'm not going into detail because what my idea is to tell you how data is used for application. That's what I have to do it. So very briefly, I will try to cover it without going into much details. This is the sharp dip in the frequency. So this is my rate of change of frequency basically during this period. So this is my 0th instant. So you see during this position, the value is not clear. So after 0.2 second, I am saying I will monitor it between this duration. Let us see. So I get true value of rate of change of frequency. So that will give us better value of my inertia rather than focusing at this point, right? So let me tell you, we have done it. I will tell you how we have tested it. We have, this is the 9-bus example that we have considered. These generators that we have considered, we have considered this for, in first test system, we have considered this as a single area system. And we have, in simulation, we know what is the inertia of this generator, what is the inertia of this generator, this generator, and this generator. And for this generator, we have tried to find out the, based on their rating, this is the equivalent inertia constant. So it is the desired value, theoretical value that we have taken. Okay, this is the theoretical value that we have taken. Now what we have done is, this is the second test case in which we have varied these values, and this is the equivalent inertia constant 4.98. Okay. Now, how we have obtained it, that I will try to illustrate this. Okay. Based on these PMUs were installed at these locations. Okay. PMUs were installed at these locations and their readings were captured. Okay. And because of natural variations in load, the natural variations were simulated. And those natural variations in load, they have resulted in some frequency variations in this. Okay. So based on these frequency variations, you can see here, this is the validation data and this is the working data. Okay. This is the validation data and working data for power changes. And this is the frequency deviations for 0 to 250 seconds. Input and output data used for system identification that has been used. So this is your frequency data and this is your power changes. So from this we have obtained the delta P and delta F. Okay. And from this, these different models have been tried. Okay. This is your RMAX model. Okay. This is your transfer function model. This is autoregressive model. This is transfer function model of ninth order, eighth order. This is first order. Okay. So with these different values, it has been tried, and this is the response that we have obtained. And if we see, this is the data. This is the data. So this is the variation that we are having here actually, right? With this data. And it is this value which is following it very precisely. It is this data, and one is transfer function data that is following this is this lower order model. Okay. So this is another test case, measured and simulated model values, change in frequency. That was for power. This is for change in, this is also for delta F, change in frequency in hertz. Okay. Okay. Now this is the transfer impulse response and then slope of a step response, and the proposed method we have obtained this at this point of time. This is the value that has been used in the first method, impulse response based calculation. Then the slope of a step response, we have considered this slope of a step response for two different models, and these have been used. I don't know how much you are following with this data. What I'm trying to tell you is, let me come to the direct results. For different order of transfer functions, we have been able to get the values, and with the proposed method, we have been able to find out these values, and irrespective of the order of the model, I am getting the value which is very close to the desired values of 3.3. If you see here how much we have considered here, 3.371. This is the overall transfer function, and this is what we are getting here, 3.324, 3.27, 3.34, which is not as accurate with other methods in case of impulse response and this technique. So very accurately, we have been able to find out the inertia values without any disturbance introduction into the system, just by real life data measurement. There are some other values also. These are some results on some two area system. I will skip this to come to the next application because I think you have obtained some idea of how the data can be used. How can we summarize about the inertia estimation? The equivalent inertia of the power system can be estimated using PMU data for online applications. The measured dynamics of the frequency and load profile under normal operations are used for identification of transfer function. First step, whose selected step response data is used to estimate the inertia and corresponding maximum rate of change of frequency. And this discussed method can be useful to power system operators in decision making with varying inertia due to grid tied renewable energy sources. Right? So next we come to non-intrusive load monitoring technique. Now, what is this non-intrusive load monitoring? Let me first explain you what is non-intrusive load monitoring. Suppose this is our household network where we have different socket, power point distribution board, we have air conditioning working here, we have some washing machine here, we have television here, we have some computer, we have dishwasher, or many appliances are there. Now, it is obtained for many applications, for example, demand response or for energy conservation. It is necessary to find out at what time which appliance is running. Okay, so one way is to install energy meter or some kind of device at every appliance so that it can tell us at what time it was running. Another method is, if I have energy meter installed here, then it's based on its reading. If I can identify its total aggregated value, if I can identify at what time any particular appliance was running, so that is basically known as non-intrusive load monitoring. Now, how I do it? We can do it by identifying the signature of particular appliance. Now, the signature will be defined in terms of different features. what is the power rating of that, what is the harmonic level, how much distortion it creates, how much power factor it affects. For example, if it is resistive load, if it is induction motor kind of load, so their power factor values will be different. If it is depending upon the type of load, we can create signatures, okay, or we can have machine learning based classification techniques which can classify this data or changes in data, and it can tell us at any particular time which device is working, how many devices are working. So that is basically known as non-intrusive load monitoring. I have limited time available, so I will try to briefly introduce you about this because I would like to keep 5 minutes reserved for the question answer session. So for any doubt clearing session. So I will come directly about this general framework of NILM. What we do is we have AC main measurement using the smart meter data. So it provides us the cumulative value of all the appliances running. What is the total power? Okay. Based on the voltage, current, and power rating, instantaneous power ratings of the energy meter, we pre-process the data and we try to detect the event. Okay. When any event has occurred, then we try to extract the signature from there. Okay. From some signature rule base. And then from that signature extraction, then we try to identify at any time which device is rating. So this is the experimental data acquisition system where we have from the main switchboard, from the electricity supply, we have connected different appliances using some voltage and current probes and smart energy logger device and data acquisition system. So this is the number of appliances that we have considered. We have done it at our in our lab, and the data were collected at my own residential apartment here in the campus around 2 years ago. So this is the identifier which has been identified to particular appliance D1, D2, D3, D4 up to D9. Okay. So now you see, this is the individual appliance characteristics, signatures, we call it signature. So now compressor is on and compressor is off at this moment. So there is some minimal load which is having here, and then again compressor is on at this moment. Okay, and after this second. So this is only for refrigerator. And when we zoom it, this is the kind of pattern that we get. So you see here, for this case, it is more sinusoidal rather than this. Because here your mostly load is inductive because the compressor operates using some kind of motor. So it is more sinusoidal. When your load is small, then you have more distortions because then you have more power electronic interfaces, voltage regulators and other kind of things. So distortion is more in the current when compressor is off. So we can identify, this is basically multi-state device. These states could be on, off, and compressor is on or off. So it is off means device is completely off, then it is on but compressor is off, and then compressor is also on. Then we have induction heater. Now induction heater can operate at different ratings, either at 2000 watt, 1300 watt or 500 watt or 120 watt. When it operates at lower rating, it operates in intermittent mode, means it remains on for some cycles and then it remains off. But when it operates at higher power ratings, it operates in continuous mode. So this is its zoomed view of the current. And you see at peak, there are some distortions and the current keeps on increasing during this period when it is initially started. So based on this, it is basically for this period, 180 to 185. It is for somewhere this instant. This zoomed portion is for this period. So this is basically transient detection. That's what have been done. So what I'm trying to explain you is this data. This is all about data. I have acquired for different appliances and I have created their signatures. Okay, for different appliances. Now what I'm doing is I'm clubbing these together. Okay, so this mixer is turned on and turned off on some devices. So this D6 is on here D6 is off here. So how their power level and currents are changing. So it is like it has been modeled. So we have extracted some features for signature definition. Its RMS value, some min-max values, some mean value, some standard deviation, total harmonic distortions. In one of the other applications, we have tried to find out these features. And then we have applied machine learning algorithm to classify them in different categories. Okay. So these are the number of switching that we have incorporated, and these are the identified by ANN classifier. So accuracy was around 97.2%. इसमें टेबुलर फॉर्म में रिजल्ट्स हमने दिए हैं. इसकी एक्चुअल इतनी स्विचिंग्स की गई तो इंडक्शन हीटर में, then it has been able to find out total 68 times out of 70 times. You see here, the cooler was turned on here, refrigerator was turned on here, immersion rod was turned on here, and the classifier has been able to detect accurately based on the signatures, based on their signatures. So there is nothing magic here. There is nothing magical here. It is just defining the signatures and then accurately matching those signatures with these things. Just like we have thumb impression. So it is my own identity. Similarly, every appliance has their own identity. So how we can identify that from the cumulative data? That's what we can do. So that is another applications that we have. This is another way of doing it using VI curve. So in non-intrusive load monitoring, we can summarize that these works solve the problem of load disaggregation for non-intrusive load monitoring using transient data and shape. Despite of high sampling rate, the first approach is simple and fast with very common feature of a signal, whereas the second method is also promising with an enhanced feature based on shape of the VI curve. With suitable feature selection and training, it is possible to achieve very high value of accuracy in identifying the appliances with aggregated smart meter data. So what I have tried to show you is that using data analysis, how we can use it for application to demand response or for energy conservation or for monitoring of individual appliances without actually having monitoring devices connected to each device. Okay. So the last application, I think similarly we have for load forecasting. I think we can skip it because it is another application. I can just scroll down these things and I will provide you these slides to you. You can go through it. If you have any queries, you can ask it. Load forecasting, we know it is very useful for the load scheduling and for market trading applications. If I know how much load demand will be there tomorrow, accordingly, I can schedule my buying, my bidding, my purchase, my selling, and my transmission lines, distribution system, everything. I can trade in the market. So this is the demand profile for Madhya Pradesh, actual data from 2013 to 2018. So there is a cyclic seasonal variations you see here. In winters, when there is a agricultural load, the peak is maximum, unlike Delhi or other metropolitan cities where this peak occurs during this summer seasons when their air conditioning demand is more. So unlike those states, MP sees agricultural demand more in this. So we have peak demand during the winter season. So this is some of the analysis before applying the load forecasting. What is the impact of rain on the load? What is the weather applications based on temperature and rainfall? So accordingly, we have the impact of temperature is minimum in MP as against to the other countries. This is month-wise some analysis first we have done. And based on this analysis and inferences from the data analysis, this is what I want to say. While designing the load forecasting engine, I have used this application, this analysis of data, different analysis I have performed, and that gave us this gist, that conclusion that time of day is important. weather influence is there, agricultural requirements needs to be incorporated in my model. I need to also incorporate some government policies. For example, whether government is providing free subsidy to agricultural load or not, what will be the tariff structure. Based on this, I need to create my approach. So accordingly, we have created two approaches. One is based on ANN, another is based on deep neural network. So we have basic fundamentals here, LSTMK. You might go into the details of it. And this is the prediction plot using that. And you can see the accuracy, how accurately we have been able to predict the load variations for this. And this is the MAP that we have achieved is around 0.026 only. And there are only one value, there is only one value that is having error more than 300 megawatt in this prediction. This is what we have shown here. So this is the application. So finally, we conclude that in a smart grid, enormous data is generated at different levels of, which is of very wide variety. Okay, it needs to be harnessed with advanced analytical tools to produce information that can help in solving the problems with extraction of new insights about the system and events. Data is there, tools are there, techniques are there. For example, blockchain, data mining, everything. What we need is proper fitting. Intelligence techniques, how we are incorporating them. Because the complexity of the grid is increasing. Complexity of the grid is increasing. That's why we need proper complex systems for controlling, for automatic management of the system. Value-based controls are required for enhanced grid performance and allocation of maximal benefits from services along with electricity value chain, right? So these are the objectives of data analytics in a smart grid. What key issues and challenges we observe is data security in terms of data privacy and integrity, authentication, data quality in terms of their noise, outliers management, and data processing location, whether it is centralized, local, or hybrid. So how blockchain help us? So finally, we can conclude that why blockchain technology? Because when it comes to data security, your security is there in terms of immutation that we have in that. Data quality is there in terms of how in block form, very in systematic way your data is being arranged. How we can handle outliers, because we can have the blocks, we can have structures in that the format so they can easily identify the outliers. Missing data in blockchains will be easy to find out. Then data processing, it can be centralized or local. So no single point of failure in this case. Real-time tracking is possible in this case. Unalterable copies only are there, no third-party involvement. So basically, we are able to handle the key issues and challenges of data analytics using the blockchain technology. So that's why it is the future, and we need to adopt such kind of technology and apply them to the power system and smart grid for its better control and better applications. These are some of the references. This is the paper that I was talking about. You can go through it for this inertia estimation. This is the basics of NILM. You can get it from here. And this is about the NILM other paper that is listed here. So I'm sorry for leaving very less time for the question answer sessions. So now floor is open for you. Please share your feedback and questions so that I'll be happy to answer your questions that will give us some more information to us and give me a scope to think more deeply on these aspects. So any questions, please, from your side?
Participants, you may have any question with sir. Any more information you want to have to get from the sir, you can ask.
I was not able to follow the chat box properly because I was focusing on this. So if you have written any question there, you can ask now because I was not able to check it, follow the chat box properly. So, but in between, I have seen there were some messages popping up in between. So if you have any questions, please can ask it now. Any feedback? If you don't have any questions, any feedback from the audience?
Yes, audience. Sir,
Sir, thank you, sir. The session was very informative, and you have told us how can we implement blockchain in the smart grid scenario. Thank you, sir, for sharing your knowledge and expertise with all of us.
A speaker not having a question is not very encouraging and motivating part. So anyway,
Sir, good
I will
evening,
take
sir.
it on a positive note. Yes.
Good evening, sir. Your lecture was really very informative. Sir, I am having one question that
Yes.
how blockchain helps us in identifying bad data or data which is not useful.
No, it cannot help in identifying the bad data. But when we are arranging, you see, there is a block and chain of block. So suppose this is a data. This is my new block of data that is coming in. So I can have proper structures and means to handle that block data or missing data in this particular block. So my overall handling of the block data, bad data will be easy in that way. So management will be easy.
Okay, sir, is there any software which is being used for doing this blockchain data analytics?
It is a kind of database management. Okay, so database management, for example, this SQL and DBMS, there are many packages which are there. I don't know because I am from power system area. I am just using these techniques for my applications. I'm not expert in blockchain or in the data analytics side. I'm just having their applications, so I don't have much idea about the softwares. There may be, but you can just Google it and find out from some other speakers from that domain during this course.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any other participant want to have any question with sir?
Yes, sir. Sir, I would like to know whether this blockchain technology is prone to virus attack or hacking. As I know that it is very much secure, but even though I would like to know if there is a possibility of hacking the complete blockchain database.
Very good question. Actually, in that way, we can say nothing is foolproof or 100% secure. Okay, but when it comes to its structure, in that way we define whether relatively it is better or not. Okay, so that is the key idea. Because when I am creating something, so I know what are the loopholes, so I can make threat to the system. Okay, because I know insights about it. So in that way, it is not 100% foolproof, and nothing is 100% foolproof. But as compared to traditional database management systems, the way the data is structured, the way data is arranged in the form, this kind of, for example, you just go through this slide. Okay, unalterable copies only. Okay, so suppose you are configuring your blockchain in such a way it is having only read-only copy for analysis purpose, unalterable. So basically what is happening, this is your block of data, this is your block of data, this is next chain. In this chain, this you have made unalterable. So this has become your secure in that way. But it is accessible to others because you have to access it for some applications. So in that way, it is not secure. But you cannot corrupt it. you cannot means corrupt it for its mal-operation so that it can create some catastrophic failure. So in that way, it is secure, which is possible in traditional way. Are you getting my point, what I'm trying to focus?
Sir, yes, sir, I got it.
Anything else? Okay, so thank you very much for your patience hearing, and I think it's time to say goodbye. So thank you very much, all of you. Thank you.